The Dark Age Research Project is now live. We finally have the infrastructure built out where I can give you a first look at this project. So I want to give you the big picture. I want to show you some specifics, and you'll see why by the end of next year, this is going to be the most interesting website in the world. Okay, so if you've been paying attention, you know that our scientific and research institutions are failing. They've been failing very visibly for the last several years. A lot of people are talking about it. But actually, it turns out they've been failing for a lot longer than that. I have this suspicion that we've been living in something like a dark age for more than a century. What does that mean? Well, it means that in every domain of thought, all of our structures of knowledge are plagued by errors at every level. There are small technical errors, there are more complex errors, there are huge paradigmatic errors, there's blatant corruption. And what happens is the errors that are made by academics very frequently get turned into orthodox perspectives. They get turned into scientific consensus. And once an orthodoxy has been formed, it's incredibly hard to have it changed. It actually turns out that our paradigms are very frequently not established due to their intellectual merit, but rather due to social or psychological or even political phenomena. So the result is that we have a ton of false knowledge that we have inherited from the 20th century. I've seen a bunch of examples of researchers who will spend hundreds or thousands of hours deeply diving into a specific topic, and then they conclude, my goodness, I have found a huge scientific scandal. It's such a big deal. Who do I tell? This is amazing. But they generally don't realize, because they've been focused on one topic, that shocking scientific scandal is the norm, actually, across disciplines. Orthodox concepts being incorrect is the norm, it's not the exception. And so what the Dark Age Research Project is trying to do is organize, categorize, and analyze the false information that we've received from the 20th century, which is a colossal and impossibly large project, and we are right at the very beginning of it. So that's the big picture, and I know that sounds like exactly what we need right now, because it is, but I want to immediately lower your expectations to show you where things stand right now. So you are looking at the Dark Age Research Project in the Nat Phi Research Hub. If you're a Nat Phi Network member, then you have access to the Research Hub. You'll see that we have about 15 different topics in here. We have biology and chemistry and geology and physics and so on. And each one of these topics will have a list of pages that correspond to a specific concept. So you'll see in biology, we have junk DNA, misidentified cell lines, Lamarckism. Each one of these pages you can think of as a rabbit hole, okay? So take one of my favorite rabbit holes in physics, which is the cosmological axis of evil. What is that? Well, the summarized version is that there is a lot of evidence that's suggesting that Earth in our solar system is occupying a privileged, unique, special place in the universe. And that violates a bunch of assumptions and axioms in physics. They call it the axis of evil because they don't really know what to do with this. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not some woo thing. This is what the telescopes are showing right now. So it's actually reasonable to think that we could need some deep theoretical revisions as a result of the axis of evil, which is fascinating, right? So this is a article that's a short overview of the concept. Okay, this is not super deep research. Right now, this is me working with the AI to make an accessible jumping off point for a future deep dive. In fact, this is one of the longer articles. There are other articles here that are just a couple of paragraphs. For example, in biology, the section on junk DNA, just a few paragraphs here that will get future researchers enough information to jump off when they do deep dives. In the language of Wikipedia, you'd probably call one of these little articles a stub, right? This doesn't reflect the depth of information that you're going to find when you do an actual deep dive. So the goal is to first go broad. So we see the landscape of important rabbit holes that have to be gone down. I'm anticipating several hundred rabbit holes at least that have to be gone down by somebody. And then we go deep. So I'm going to personally be analyzing a bunch of specific topics, and I'm going to be putting together teams to do the same, because this project is obviously way larger than one person can possibly accomplish. And that was actually part of the motivation for me to start the Research Institute in the first place, was to coordinate this. So in the Dark Age Research Project, you're going to find a large list of rabbit holes which have legitimate research behind them. I don't have the final truth about each question, but I do know that these are serious challenges to orthodoxy in a bunch of different domains, and somebody has to do real research here. So some of these articles are very specific. So for example, in chemistry, we have an article on X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy. This is a tool that's used in chemistry that might be miscalibrated, and so there's a bunch of potentially false research out there in chemistry. Some of them are, more paradigmatic concepts. So for example, in geology, this is one of my favorite ones. It's so fascinating. It's called the abiogenic origin of oil theory. There are researchers who have been investigating the idea that perhaps oil is actually produced deep inside the earth, and it's not from decayed organic matter. I don't know if this is true or false. I do know there's real research behind it, and it's something that would have enormous implications for the world if we're not actually running out of oil, but actually the earth is producing oil. Please note that not even all of these topics have entries right now. So for example, in economics, I don't have anything added yet. And as you go through, you'll see a bunch of empty pages. Like in health and medicine, there's a ton of stuff in here that I just haven't got around to yet, and working with the AI to put in just the first basic article. So it's all fascinating, and it's guaranteed to give you information overload. So you can just, peruse this, consume it as intellectual stimulation, or if you want, you can actually participate in this research. We need as many minds as possible to look through this information. And if you want to research with us and join in, you can check out the other video on the Nat Phi Network on how to do that. So the wait is finally over. The Dark Age Research Project has begun.